Thank you. Good morning. So we're continuing in our series on dreaming, and we're starting to take the dream into different categories of our lives. Last month we focused on finances and brought in Edwene Gaines to talk with us about spiritual principle. And Barbara and Rev Rich taught the 4 spiritual laws of prosperity. So this month, the month of May, we're focusing on healing and physical health and emotional health and spiritual health and global health. And if you remember, for those of you who were here in January when we began looking at all the different categories of our lives, one of the images that Annie created for us was that of a lunar lander that was landing on the moon. And it's fine if all the feet of it are in balance, but the truth is that when something in our lives becomes out of balance, then it tends to tip the lunar lander, just as, you know, it's a metaphor for our lives. Our lives are tipped if there's an area of our life that's not working, if it's our finances or our relationships or career, but probably the biggest one of all is the physical body, wouldn't you say? I mean, please, it's not like just one part of the lunar lander is off. It'd be like half of it would be off, because when we're not feeling well, when we're experiencing dis-ease in some form or other, it takes all of our attention, doesn't it? When you're in pain, it takes all of your attention. And the same with emotional pain as well. So what I am calling for us this morning is to open to the inner dreamer. And what does healing look like for you? What would your life be like if you were totally healed? What would this planet look like if it was totally healed? The truth is that the New Thought movement and Unity were both founded and rooted in the idea of healing, because healing, the Unity movement, the New Thought movement began in the 1800s. And when you think about what the medical field was doing back then, if you were sick, you probably was hit or miss if you went. I mean, you might get the leeches put on you, right? And the bad blood poured out of you, and it's like, you know what? Maybe there's another way to get healed. And so spiritual healing, affirmative healing, became very popular around this period. And for as far as the New Thought movement goes, it was begun really with Phineas Quimby. He was a watchmaker in Massachusetts, and he had this guy who worked for him named Marcus, and Marcus would go into a trance, and Marcus would, like, you know, go into people's bodies and diagnose mentally go into their bodies, and he would diagnose an illness and then heal it. And it's very much the same as what Edgar Cayce has done in the 20th century. It's what many healers and shamans do today. And the New Thought movement really began because of the need for healing. And the Unity movement also began because of a need for healing. Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder, had tuberculosis, and she took these teachings and she used them in her life. She blessed her body, she prayed, she went into silence and quiet, and because she healed herself, she began to take this to other people and had prayer circles in her home and began praying for people and laying on hands and then finding out that, you know what, the people you're praying for and blessing, they don't even need to be in the same room. You can bless them from across the country or across the world. So the Unity movement has its roots in healing, and so we follow the same format, the same premise at Seattle Unity with our prayer ministry and with our chaplains. And really, you know, you look at, there's places like HeartMath and different organizations that continually are researching what happens when we pray and when we practice healing. And one of the common denominators that they're finding is that when healing most often takes place from the person who's doing the healing or the praying is the surrendering over to a higher power. And it doesn't matter what you call that higher power. You can call it Jesus, you can call it Buddha, you can call it the Force. One article I read, they said you could even call it Spider-Man if you want to. But just invite and step aside and invite that energy to move in and through you as healing. The truth is that in our culture, that sometimes it is an illness that will get us to stop. Anybody? And it's an accepted form in our culture too, just from the small illnesses like when we have a cold or when we have the flu. It gives us an opportunity to stay home. And you can lay in bed and you can read a book and you can have some chicken soup and a cup of tea. And yeah, maybe you're not feeling so good, but isn't it nice to kind of just stop and rest for a moment? And the truth is too that when we are faced with a bigger illness, a bigger diagnosis, then that causes us to stop and look at our whole life and say, okay, I need to reevaluate what's happening for me. It's like a wake-up call that we experience. There's a story about a man who rode into a village on a horse, and he was galloping really fast, just sort of flying through, and people stopped and said, "Where are you going in such a hurry?" And he said, "I'm going wherever the horse is going. Wherever the horse is going to take me is where I'm going." And doesn't your life feel like that sometimes? Like you're riding on a horse and it's like, "Hey, where are you going?" It's like, "I don't know. I'm on to the next meeting and I'm on to the next task." And sometimes it's like we're on this horse and it's running, running, running because of our schedules. And the truth is, Thich Nhat Hanh said it. He said, stopping, calming, and resting are preconditions to healing. That when we stop, when we rest in that silence, when we listen, we open to the healing power of Spirit. And so it's important that we take a Sabbath day where we stop for one day of the week, where we don't schedule anything. For me, Monday is my Sabbath. It's the day that I like to not schedule anything, and if I can, not get in the car and just be quiet and rest. Anybody take a Sabbath? They're important. They're important to our health and healing. Now the truth is that healing is a mystery, isn't it? I mean, I could have one thing and get treatment and not come out of it, and you could have the same treatment and you do come out of it. And it is a mystery we have at our disposal in this day and time. We have all kinds of things available to us. We have incredible medical technology. How many of you would be dead without the medical field today? Look around the room, really. We have the technology, but we also have the East. We have shamanism, we have acupuncture, we have naturopaths, we have chiropractors, we have Reiki healers, we have prayer, we have meditation. So there's all these forms that are sort of coming together in this wonderful day and age in which we live. And I know for me, in 1997, I had a kidney stone. And they're really painful. They're more painful than childbirth, because childbirth you get a break, and stones you don't. And in 1997, I had a kidney stone, and I didn't get to the it started at around 3 in the afternoon. I didn't get to the hospital until 9 o'clock at night. And at that point, the stone had gotten stuck, and my blood had been poisoned. And so I'm laying in the hospital, and they came in to check on me and checked my pulse, and they're like, and then whatever else they saw. And so a nurse walks in and she says, "Are you an organ donor?" And I thought, I must be in trouble. I said, "I'm pretty sure I am." And then she said, "Okay," and she left. And really, 5 minutes later, a different nurse walked in the room, looked at everything, and she said, "Are you an organ donor?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure I am." She goes, "But does your driver's license say it?" I'm going, I'm pretty sure. And it happened a third time, really. Within 15 minutes, I was asked 3 times if I was an organ donor. So I knew I was in trouble. And I remember it was a Saturday or a Friday, and I had this big wedding the next day. And